and I'm a writer and I'm based in London. I'm so grateful Justin asked me to be able to be a part of this in self-expression because it's so important, and especially in different cultures, like being from a mixed heritage and seeing how self-expression is differing and with different religions and different countries, and pursuing a career as somebody that bases their income and their life upon self-expression. I can't wait to share with you guys the importance.
Wonderful. And if you're wondering how did I met Shanae, I met her through a summer camp job in the United States at YMCA Camp Rogers. We were,
Yes.
yes. And now, because we have a very comfortable audience number, let's have a very quick self-introduction. So we'll go around the room. I'll pick people one by one, and you may introduce yourself, your interests, and what is your perception of self-expression. So let's start with, let me see here. Can we have Valen to introduce himself?
All right. Thank you. I mean, like, hi everyone. It's definitely really a pleasure to be in this session today. I really like the initiative that Justin came out. So like, I would say that in his first and second sharing session, I already like participated, and I really learned a lot. And yeah, a little bit about myself. You can call me Valent. I'm currently working as a people consultant, at one of the top four accounting firms. And then yeah, I think self-expression is really important nowadays because like even in like my workplace or some of my clients, there are many cases that people or like employees, they are kind of afraid or shy to express things that are really concerning them because like they may think, it may threatens their positions in the company, right? So I think I'm really looking forward to the session today, especially, the sharings, the valuable sharings by Shanae. And yeah, looking forward to the interactive session with the others as well.
Thank you, Valen. One fun fact about Valen, he's actually studied in Oxford, and also he is an intern in Google, Singapore, and the UK. He's a very interesting person, and I would love to bring his perspective of self-expression from the corporate side of business into this session. So next, let's invite Feng Luan to introduce herself.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kang. I am a mother married with two lovely daughters. They are both 19 and 21 now. I work part-time as a tuition teacher. The other half of the time, I'll be taking care of my children, house chores. I recently went back to school again, and I'm quite active in Toastmasters activity. Talking about self-expression, I think basically we express ourselves through the activities that we are involved in. So probably that will be the main part of the things that is speaking about ourselves to others. Yeah. Back
That,
to you, Justin.
Thank you. That's an amazing self-introduction. You have talked about your experience. I met Feng Luan from Toastmasters, and I was surprised that she's actually a teacher. So perhaps in the later discussions, you could bring out your experience talking to children and maybe share a bit about how children self-express. Next, we have the knee.
Hi everyone, my name is Zani and currently I'm doing as a salesperson. So to me, self-expression is very important, especially in our daily life because like we are always, as human, we are always interacting with each other. So especially in my workplace, and thank you for Justin organizing this self-expression session and looking forward to learn from you, Shanae. Thank you, Justin. Back to you.
You're always welcome, Denny. Denny is a very passionate speaker. When she approached me to learn about public speaking and maybe being a TME in Toastmasters, which means the host, she's always very keen to list down things and listen to how other people have done their routines and all. So thank you for joining this session. Next, let's have Hishvan.
Hello, everyone. Good evening and good afternoon. Um, my name is Isfan. I'm currently studying mechanical engineering in my final year. And I am here because I would like to learn more about self-expression, because it is something that I was interested to and explore as well. So yeah, I'm glad and I'm thankful to be here. Thank you. Back to you again, Justin.
Thank you, Hiswan. Hiswan is new to Toastmasters. I recently met him in Connaught. And the interesting part is, when Hiswan was introducing himself, that's a form of self-expression. But we'll dive into that a bit more later on. Last but not least, we have Olivia. Olivia, are you there? Don't worry, Olivia. I got your message that your line is a little bit laggy. There's no sound of it. Don't worry. If you're in an area that is difficult to communicate, you can always use the chat. So feel free to type in the chat where if you want to introduce yourself, but don't feel pressured to do so. All right. So now we have introduced ourselves. I would like to bring your attention to how you guys introduce yourself, because that's your first form of self-expression. Introducing yourself. Whenever you meet someone new, whether it be a lecturer, a teacher, your boss, or your friends, we always want to project ourselves in a way we're most comfortable with. We want to be honest with ourselves. We want to be very genuine. And my biggest question to you guys is, you don't have to answer this right now, but were you genuine in how you express yourself just now? Did you have something that you wanted to say which you don't feel comfortable? Did you have something that you feel that I'm too shy to share about? Did you have something that doesn't feel genuine when you say it? So have a few of these things in mind, and do write them down for yourselves. So before we get into the huge topic, I would like to recommend everyone, if you guys want to write down notes, if you guys want to type it on your computer, do so. I always encourage this since the first session, that writing down notes will help you remember more about this session. I'm not interested in the popularity or the results I gain from this, but I'm more interested in how much you guys learn from this, and that what drives me forward. So now I'll give you guys a few seconds to bring out whatever writing materials you want, and I'll explain the topic in depth now. So we have heard the audience perception of self-expression. I would like to ask the guest of the night, what is her perception of self-expression? Shanae?
Self-expression to me is a form of authenticity, being your most authentic self. When you express yourself via feelings, which can be done through feelings and the creative arts and honesty. And self-expression is just being your most authentic self and portraying your emotions and your feelings and your thoughts in either like a creative way or through an honest conversation, or yeah, that's it to me.
And I'm very curious on one thing about your career and self-expression. I know that you have to be very genuine in acting, but when you portray a character, does that genuineness kind of fades away? Do you have to put on a different persona? I'm quite curious about this, and I might be wrong about what I'm saying.
No, I am so glad you asked this, because a lot of people think, for instance, if I'm developing a character for a piece of theatre, people think that you have to embody all these qualities. But the thing with acting is it's kind of juxtaposing it, because they always want to see your take on it, your honesty. Because if you think about it, for instance, I don't know, I once in school, I was Wendy from Peter Pan. And it's a thing of nobody wants to see that character portrayed over and over and over and over again. They want to see your take on it, your self-expression on that character. What do you add to that character? What do you bring, including the character development that you require, obviously, like the middle class, and like that she's very like Daisy and very, like she has all these other qualities, but they want to see and act in your truth. And even so, I'm halfway through drama school auditions, and they a lot of them, they want to see your honesty, your take. They want to see you fall in that moment. So it's all about authenticity and not just completely acting. It's developing on truth, if that makes sense.
It certainly does. And what I find interesting is you did say you put your own character into it. So let's talk about Wendy in your high school. We all know from the stories in Disney that Wendy may be different compared to how the actor is. And if I'm not mistaken, Wendy would be a middle class Caucasian woman living in a suburb. And I would
Yeah.
like to ask you, because we're all people of color, did you put your characteristics of being a POC into the character of Wendy?
I'm so glad you brought this up, Justin, because no, I didn't. And this is actually something that's really important because um, I actually didn't. And even going to college, I was the only person of color as a female. And there was one other person of color. So there was a guy that was black, and then there was me. And it wasn't until I actually moved to London last year where I could genuinely self-express myself authentically. I feel like when I was playing these roles in school and when I was in these environments, I had to adapt because I didn't see myself in people. I didn't see people that looked like me. So I actually wasn't. I was just acting and trying to actually be these roles instead of being like, hey, I'm a person of color and I'm actually working class. How can I add to this? Or how could I be authentic in this? I didn't actually express myself. And that's very interesting. I think we should speak about that actually, like if people have ever been in spaces where they couldn't express themselves because obviously being a person of color and being from a different background, how you actually have to hinder that and hold that back.
That is super interesting because it shows a big contrast from high school and then to university and then to the drama scene. And I was
Yeah.
wondering, was it very encouraging when you step into the drama scene that they want you to be yourself authentically?
As a person of color and as somebody that's working class, no, it is an absolute struggle. For instance, I'll put into perspective, even to just have my natural hair out on sets and things is a privilege because these are things that are discriminated against. We tend to have to alter ourselves, even in the workplace as a person of color. And we have things which are called protective hairstyles, which are actually oppressed. We get told to put our hair back because this hair isn't seen as professional. For instance, as well, drama school, they don't. It's because I'm basically halfway through two top drama schools, and last year I got accepted into Lambda, which is a top drama school, and they basically I got in, but they still cater for middle class white people to the point where the course was very expensive and I couldn't fund it, and there was only one scholarship for 32. There was 32 people in the course, but there was only one scholarship, and the acting industry is it's a struggle. It's an absolute struggle because they I want to it's so opposing because I want to go there and portray my most authentic self, but a lot of them will make me adapt myself. They'll make me put me in this little box type of thing. So yes, it's really it's a big struggle.
I see. And this is very relatable to a lot of historical examples. Like, if you're old enough to remember, there was this Marvel supervillain called Dr. Manchu. It was portrayed it's like a Chinese supervillain with a Fu Manchu mustache, wearing the traditional Chinese clothing. That to me was very stereotypical, very
Yes.
unauthentic in
Yeah.
the culture of Chinese people. It was in a comic in the 70s or 80s, and there was never any changes. Like, it's only until recently, if you heard that Marvel started making a movie with a Chinese superhero. The movie will be called not Simu Liu was the actor. It will be called, oh gosh, I forgot it. I forgot the movie, but it was something to do with kung fu and martial arts. It's a very interesting movie. But when I remember the topic, I'll let everyone know. So
Yeah.
I'll now give my perception on the self-expression. So I'll bring the science part, and I hope I don't bore everyone too much. From a sociological view, self-expression is the ability to say something that you truly believe, which is important, whether it be in communication, art, speech, dance, or any other form. This can be in the form of art. For example, what was Da Vinci trying to tell us when he painted the Last Supper or the Mona Lisa? What was writers like Stephen King or John Green trying to portray when he wrote books like It or books like Fall in the Stars? What the singers like John Lennon wanted to tell us when he wrote Imagine? What did singers like from bands like Nirvana wanted to tell us when he wrote Smells Like Teen Spirit? Or come to more recent examples with The Weeknd in songs like Blinding Lights. Have you guys ever put in thoughts to these songs? Have you guys ever put in thoughts to the books they were trying to write? What were they trying to talk about? Were they trying to talk about our culture? Were they trying to give a comment about how we are living our lives? Or was there something that we're missing that they are trying to let us know? This can be seen in actors and comedians as well. If you look at acts from maybe comedians such as, let me think, those who are political, I could think of who was the guy on the Daily Show? There was one South African. If anyone knows, do let me know. Like, oh gosh, why can't I remember? But anyway, there were many comedians who talk about political issues and they use their talent of comedy to portray messages. There was one Amer he's not American, but he's an immigrant, which was born in Singapore, raised in Australia, and went to the Daily Show. He's a Chinese guy, but I forgot his name. But oh well. But what I'm trying to say is, have a little thought about your favorite artists, your favorite music, your favorite books, and try to think what were they trying to express. Because I'm pretty sure they have something to tell the audience more than just a story and a plot. Now, if anyone would like to share about their favorite music or books and they know what the artists were trying to say, do share it out. Does anyone have any ideas? Or Shanae, if you have one.
Yes, of course. So one of my favorite artists is Alicia Keys. Alicia Keys is very important to me because when I was growing up, she was the only type of woman that I saw that looked like me. And it was like, whoa. I was just like, oh my gosh, like she had her big curly hair and she played piano and she was so authentic. And one of my favorite songs is, one of my favorite albums is from 2001, I think, 2003. And it's called Songs in a Minor. And the whole album is about actually, because I think a lot of people see successful people like their favorite artists, but they just think, wow, like you're so great, I want to be like you, but they don't really hear of the struggle. And Alicia Keys actually has, her whole album is about just being authentic, and one of her lines in one of her songs is, if you're troubled, you just got to let it go. And I think it's really nice, her album, because it just explains, one of them, her line is, so what, it took me like 2 years. And people just, I feel like people just listen to people's beats and they just dance along. But like you said, what do the lyrics tell you? What is the person trying to tell you? And she was basically trying to tell us that it's okay, and when you're troubled you have to let these things go, but then it's okay to feel. And it may take you longer than usual. Like for instance, drama school, it actually took me 2 years to get to this stage. And she was just basically saying, carry on, keep going, and don't get stuck in your head, which will always be relevant in regards to mental health. And everybody suffered with being like, oh, I just want to give up. So I love her because she's authentic and expressing, keep going, and you can do what I'm doing.
That is very amazing. Like it's so interesting to hear who inspired you. I was wondering, to the audience, did anyone in particular could be an artist, writer, or singer? Did anyone inspire you? This is your chance to try out self-expression. Like, don't be shy. You could talk about somebody who you just knew, or somebody who you knew a long time. So don't worry if you're still a bit camera shy. We'll have many more of these opportunities to go. So back to the topic, I'll describe self-expression as emotions in motions. They are like colors on a palette, allowing you to paint how you feel, what is your mind, what is it thinking, basically a canvas of your soul. So it's to me a form of being able to communicate, whether it be speech or dance or anything. It's a way for me to project my soul in the form which I'm most comfortable with. So I would like to ask everyone now, are we being genuine? Do you feel authentic? And I would like to ask Sinead, I truly believe that you are the most genuine now, but when you were growing up, did you had any struggles?
Oh, yes, yes. A lot of struggles. Even to this day, I feel like, and I can't remember where I read it, but they say that we have 7 faces for different people, which is very interesting. I genuinely believe that growing up, it's only now in the last year, I can say, moving to London and doing what I want to do. But before that, wow, it was an absolute struggle. I come from a family where, like I said, my dad is from Sierra Leone, and he actually moved here when he was 14 because my granddad came to study. And then I have a mum that was born here, so raised here. And my mum completely supported anything that I wanted to do. And every like completely just like, yes, I root for you, the arts, everything. But my father, which I feel like a lot of you can relate to, was like very much so, you have to do a top job like a doctor, a nurse, something that's going to be beneficial. So when I actually decided to pursue a career in performing arts, wow, it wasn't until I was seen on the TV. But even to this day, my dad doesn't kind of understand it, because my sister, she does midwifery, and that's seen as a job that's going to be beneficial and that you make money off of. But to be an artist, is very much frowned upon my family, because they don't really see it as a career. And I have to understand the culture and where they grew up. Growing up in Sierra Leone, this is something that isn't really seen as a career, or isn't really seen as important as self-expression compared to being in the Western world. So even to this day, it's a struggle. It's a big struggle, but um, I have to understand that being my most authentic self, and even for the people, like you said, Justin, your friend that wanted to be a musician, you genuinely can't be a people pleaser, because in the long term, you're going to suffer mentally, and you're going to not be happy in what you're doing, because if you people please, it's not the way forward. So being authentic and self-expressing and building the courage to have these conversations with people. Eventually I will speak to my family members and be like, this is me, this is what I do. And eventually, hopefully, the relationships can be built. And yeah, you have to make sacrifices, because otherwise you're going to live inauthentically. And then what's that? You're living for other people. And then that's not being self-expressive. You're living for other people, which are 2 different things.
That's a very beautiful story and very relatable. I would like to share a few points from myself. It's one of the points is when I first traveled overseas, or I would start from my childhood. I was brought up with a lot of Western culture. I love watching the American TV shows. I was brought up with lucky to be with a family that subscribes to cable. And with cable, I was so exposed to so many different shows. There were reality shows, there were cartoons, all in American culture. And throughout my whole childhood, I wanted to be them. And it was the most, it sounds crazy now, but back then it made so much sense to me. I wanted to be a white person. I wanted to be
Yeah.
those people. I wanted to be the protagonist, like Superman in the TV shows, who was big, strong, white, and everything. It was difficult now to think about how did I get this type of mindset? How did I get this type of mindset that being them is the best? Like how being them means I will have a better life. Being them would
Yeah.
lead me to be happy. And it took me a long while. Even when I went to university, I I mix around with a lot of locals. I try to be like them, whether whether they are Caucasian or they are people of color from different countries and cultures or from different Asian countries. I tried to assimilate, but it was so difficult. A lot of them just don't resonate on the same frequency. And if anyone here who ever who went overseas, studied overseas, or interact with expats here, you realize what we share is very, very different and very hard to connect sometimes. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of people who I can relate to, but there are also a lot of people that are difficult and having to force and for that attention, I seem to try to please them a lot. One example in Ireland was actually drinking. I don't enjoy drinking a lot, but to be
Mhm.
friends with many of the Irish people, I had to chug like 20 something shots. I kid you not. They are fantastic drinkers, and it baffles me how crazy they could do it. So there were a lot of peer pressure. I could tell you instances, there were drugs on the table. There were there were very crazy things they would want you to do. The craziest things I heard of was, they dare want people to kick the car mirrors of their neighbors or like destroy properties. The kind of crazy stuff. And of course that to me was over the line and all, but that was what you had to do to be cool with them. And it took me quite a bit of some time to find the right group of people to realize, hey, it's not about being white. It's about being with the people that makes you feel authentic. Eventually,
Exactly.
I did find that group. One of them happened to be the people in Camp Rogers, which I met
Yeah.
fantastic people, and Shanae has many stories about that as well. So that taught me a very valuable lesson. It's not about it's not about what their skin color is. It's whether they accept you for who you are. And it's a very interesting point. That was a big learning point for me, and it broadened my horizon. I'm not sure if everyone else have a certain story like that, but I would like to emphasize that what Shanae said at the end was super important. Why bottling up your emotions can be disastrous. Let me try to explain this in a very simple analogy. Imagine a river flowing through flowing through a tunnel. Whenever and there's occasions where rocks or twigs might fall into the tunnel, and it will build up pressure and try to clog up the place. And if too much debris gets clogged into the tunnel, it will create so much pressure that will flood the entire area. I'm not sure if this is the best analogy, but it's a simple way of saying don't bottle it up. It might build up so much pressure, the bottle might just burst. But if you have, if you let yourself, if you let yourself clear those debris, ease the pressure on the bottle, and you might not have the meltdowns, the burstings, and the consequences of damaged mental health. There's so much studies that talk about how mental health disorders are related to stress, and most of the stress come from our inauthenticity to express ourselves in the way that we need to. Imagine this: if you have a friend that does something you don't like, for example, they don't clean the dishes, you ignore them, and they repeat that week after week until one day they do something very minor. For example, they misplaced their shoe, and you got so angry and lash out at the person. At the end of the day, everyone's a victim. Your friend might think that you has gone over your head, and you might think that you have gone over your head, and this will cause friendships to be broken, ruined, and maybe even family relationships to be torn apart. There are many of these instances happening around our society, and I'm sure many of you have friends or personally experienced this. Sometimes tolerance is important, but there is a fine line between being tolerance and abuse. So we have to understand the difference between these situations, and I can't differentiate those situations for you, but you have to be the person to be actively aware about such situations happening. All right, so let's go into a more interesting topic. So we'll talk about how our language and our culture affect self-expression. And after that, we'll talk about how do we become more expressive, more authentic in ourselves. So this is more of a sciencey bit, but feel free to chip in if you have any ideas, Shanae. So let's talk about reality and how language shapes it. I just want to ask everyone, do you think that our reality shapes language or language shapes reality? Feel free to share your opinions through the through your voice or the message. But what do you think, Shanae?
That's so interesting. So does our reality shape our language, or does our language shape our reality, was the question. I think a bit of both. I think reality, in what do you mean in the way of language? Like, explain that a bit more to me, because yeah.
So it could be, well, without giving too much, basically our language and the systems that it's being governed, for example, grammar or past present tense, this conjunctions and how sentences are phrased may affect how we perceive our reality.
Oh, okay. I definitely think reality impacts our language a lot, in the sense that, yeah, I don't know how to explain it. That's such a deep question. I would love to hear what other people have to say, and then, yeah, build from that.
Oops, let me fix it. Okay, sorry for the interruptions. Do you have something to top up there, Shanae?
No, I never thought of that. And that's really interesting to me. So, yeah, I would love to hear other people's opinions before I speak on it, because I've never thought of that before, if that makes sense, and how it impacts, like one impacts the other. So it'll be great to hear other people's opinions and then see what I get from that, if that makes
No,
sense.
no worries. I'll give some very cool examples. And
Yeah.
for me, I'm rooting on the side that language shapes our reality.
Okay.
It might seem very ludicrous, but hear me out. So I would like everyone to point to their left. Oh wait, left. Like, could everyone try to point to their left side? Like using their hands to point. Like, show me where's the left side. Okay, so perhaps the backgrounds are covering the hands, but you guys know where left is and you know where right is. Okay, could you point to me where north is? So you might be struggling to find out where north, south, east, west is, but if you are from the tribes people of Cook Tarior in the First Nation of Australia, they don't know where left or right is. They only know north, south, east, and west. I'm sure that you heard many tribes or certain indigenous groups have certain ways to project direction. And this is one example that left and right doesn't exist in their reality. Now let me give you another example. Maybe something from well, let me give you another one. So you guys know blue and green. Did you know that there are certain tribes in the Amazon that does not differentiate blue and green? They have only one word to describe both blue and green. Some tribes don't have definite numbers. So we have our Arabic numbers, which is 1 to 9 and onwards. But some groups have a word for 1, a word for 2 to 3, a word from 4 to 7, and a word for 7 to 15. When you ask them how old are they will tell you 13 to 17. They don't have the word 15 in it. It's interesting because this is their reality. Now, it might be hard to imagine this, but let me give you an example in modern language. Did you know in German, the word son is feminine, and in Spanish, the word son is masculine? How did they define masculine and feminine? I don't know. But in English, we don't have those terms. We only use masculine and feminine for living things. It's something difficult to imagine, but to a Spanish or French speaker, it's common sense. This is their reality. I'm learning Spanish lately, and I found out that computadoras, is in fact feminine. I don't know why. So it's quite interesting to find out that different languages perceive reality in a different way. Let me give you another example in terms of sentence structures. In English, you would say, he broke the vase. But in French or Spanish, you would say, the vase broke itself. It's crazy because if you're a French or Spanish speaker, you don't know who broke the vase. Is it that guy or this guy? You would only know the vase broke itself. A more common example is in Japanese and Korean. Instead of saying, I'm eating a hamburger in English, and in Mandarin you have the same equivalent. In Korean or Japanese you would say, I hamburger eat. This shows how much they put emphasis on the noun, hamburger, instead of the action, the verb. Crazy, because in English we would focus on the action, whether you subconsciously notice it or not. And I would like everyone to do a little homework and pay attention to when they speak. What emphasis do they put? Do you put it on the noun, the verb, or the subject itself? Or the second subject, which is the, for example, hamburger, or the subject of myself? Keep in mind of what you say and keep in mind of where you put your emphasis. Because someone else who's not a native English speaker might perceive you differently. And this can be found commonly in cultures of South Asian or cultures in East Asian or even cultures from Western countries as well. If you have any expat friends, try to notice how they emphasize a word. Do they emphasize eating or do they emphasize hamburgers? So this would be a very interesting topic. Another interesting thing to note about is, did you know that English has past, present, and future tense, but Mandarin does not have it? We do have certain words to portray past tense, but those are additional words. For example, I ate last night, but in Mandarin you have to add an additional word to portray the past tense. We don't have a word to change the word of eating to ate. So this is something to think about. And in a TED Talk, you can find this online. They discovered that people who speak languages that don't have past, present tense or future tense tend to either worry a lot about time or don't care about time. And this is very apparent in a lot of Asian cultures. You can see that you have your early comers, your punctual people, and then you have your very extremely late comers there. So think about it. Does your reality runs around language or does your language run around your reality? I will get around the topic of dual bilingualism or polylingualism in a bit. Here's something a bit interesting close to home. So let me tell you that Malay is a very simple language. It combines Arabic, English, Mandarin, and many other language. It's called the lingua franca. I'm not sure the word in English, but it's the language that mixes everything else so that traders back then who came to Malaysia from the Arab world or the China world can communicate with one another and trade. This is a very interesting part of history that I believe a lot of people don't put emphasis on. Cambodia, Thailand, and Malaysia and Indonesia were central trading hubs in the Malaccan Strait. And if you look back at the history, there's many instances I can tell you in Malay. You have your English words like computer. It's also the same in Malay. You have your Arab words. I can't remember some of them. And then you also have your Mandarin words. Perhaps this could be a homework. Find out what Malay words actually came from Mandarin or came from Arab or Indian or Hindi, because there are so many of these words that we tend to neglect as Malaysians that are actually from that shares a common history with our trading ancestors. So when back to Malay, something interesting I want you guys to know that the word we have two versions, kita and kami. while kita emphasize everyone, including the person I'm talking to, kami does not include the person I'm talking to. So when I say kami, we are going to the park, it does not include the person I'm talking to. Whereas I say kita means you are going with us to the park. Something interesting to note about, where every other language does not have it. I'm not sure about Arabic. I'm not sure about certain Latin American slang dialects, but I'm very sure that Western languages does not have this. Something to also think about, does this change the way that you perceive reality? When people say kami, do you instantly have this assumption of this set of rules compared to when you say in English, we're going to the park, and then your tendency will think, oh, am I following along? In Malay, we don't think of it that way. So I think it's quite interesting to explore many languages and their systems. So back to Shanae, do you have any comments about how language perceive reality, or how reality perceive languages?
I didn't have anything to say on that before you asked me, because I've never really thought of that. I've never been asked that, if that makes sense. So I was just a bit like, whoa, but listening to you, that is very interesting, because language does impact your reality, because like you said, if you don't already know something, like you're like, yeah, I agree with what you said. I definitely think that language does impact reality, and how it's so interesting, like you said, the kita and kami thing, and how here we don't have that. We say like, oh, like when we say we're going to the park, like that, genuinely how that differentiates from like kita and kami, and how in different languages that impacts your reality in actual fact, because your language, the way you're saying something, is going to impact how that action is then going to be taken on, instead of the action and then your language, if that makes sense.
Yes, that definitely sums up what I was trying to share to everyone. And now the question is, you might be asking me, okay, so how does this have to do with self-expression? So let me bring on to my second point, which is culture. Let's talk about a bit about our culture and why is it important, because I want to bring awareness to two things. Maybe not so much on the language part, because we're not developing new languages, but we can understand present languages. And I want everyone to relate language to culture in a certain degree, because I think it's a very good exercise or thought process to let us be more empathetic and more open minded to different cultures. So we'll talk a bit more about culture, and I would like to provide views from both Western and Eastern societies. So, as we shared earlier, we have some commonalities. Our parents want us to make big money jobs, want to get those doctors and engineering degrees. But I would like to shift the view towards freedom of speech and voicing your opinions, because I believe what happened in the last year with all this chaos in, especially in Western countries like the US, been going on, and I want to hear your opinion so that we may educate the Asian communities who are here in Asia about the crazy things that are going on in that that the that the Asian communities living in Western countries are going through. So perhaps I could let Shanae share about her experience with these things happening from her point of view first.
Of course. Yeah, self-expression is a thing of coming from a place where, as we know, it was focused on Black Lives Matter because we was being oppressed and these things were happening. But now the Asian community is being impacted, as we have seen. And I think a lot of people think it happens just in America and it's really bad, but it happens over here as well. As there's the phrase as well, when America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cough. We're all impacted. And I think in terms of self-expression, we come from families, as we both know, being from a lot of you being from Asian families and me being from an African family. I come from a family where self-expression isn't really important. It's important to kind of like follow the structure. Well, for me, it's follow the structure of, so I'm brought up in a Christian household, to be domesticated. basically be like, from a young age, I'm taught to cook. I am taught that, like, yes, I must go to the church. I must like pray every Sunday. I must clean the house. I must be punished, which is in the Western world, the way that I am punished is seen as like, oh my days, this is child abuse. But in like, as in my country, my dad's country, it's seen as like discipline. And basically relating this to self-expression, it's very important because like we were saying, like if you don't express yourself, like what's happened and what's going on with our communities, if you don't have these movements, if you don't have these talks, if you don't educate people, if you don't watch things through creative arts, if you don't, because it's all fun and games going to these speeches and things, but if you don't see a piece of theatre, if you don't listen to songs, if you don't listen to these self-expressions, what would the world be? What would we be without these protests of self-expression, of anger? What would we be without watching theatre and entertainment and Netflix? What would we be without expressing our feelings? How would relationships be? How would communication be if we wasn't authentic and we just lived to please other people, or we just let reality be, if that makes sense? How would it be if we didn't protest, for instance, with Black Lives Matter and what's going on in the Asian community? How would that world look if we just said, yeah, that's how it's going to be, that's the reality? Imagine not expressing how you feel. And that's the personification of how life should be in general. It shouldn't just be a thing of, oh yeah, I'm just here and this is life. You need to be able to express your opinions and how you feel. And people are always going to say something. If you look at all the greatest leaders and the struggle they have been through in order to get their voices across, even in religions, look how Christians, how the belief is that Jesus Christ died on the cross because he wanted to express that he is here to save the world from sin, and he took that sacrifice. If you look at like how great leaders were imprisoned because they voiced their opinion, Martin Luther King, the speech, and how people was out to get him, and all these things. Self-expression is a fundamental, and it's always oppressed. It's always oppressed. The front speaking your mind and embracing, I feel like, has only become almost trendy recently in the Western world, to authentically be like, yes, hashtag self-love is something that we're not taught. It's something we have to learn ourselves, which is absolutely absurd to me. We have to learn to love ourselves and learn that it's okay to voice our opinions. And we have to learn that instead of going to these spaces where we're taking up spaces, we have to be like, I'm not gonna be this person to just be like, hey, I'm in a predominantly white space and I'm going to adapt, and like what Justin had to do, and how like, yeah, I have these peer pressures, how I have to drink to almost fit into this society, into this space, into this reality. You have to express yourself and be like, you know what, this isn't for me, this is what I want, or this is what I have to say. People will always have something to say, whether you want to say something or whether you don't say something, so you may as well speak. Me, my parents would have had something to say, even if I pursued a career as a doctor, or if I pursued a career as, I don't know, was seen as like, I don't know, like a teacher or something that's seen as great to them. They would always have something to say. So I may as well portray my most authentic self via self-expression and do what I want to do and have that backlash. And eventually I know at the end of it, I would have known I've done the most authentic thing, which is being myself and express what I wanted. That was a lot, but I hope you guys got something from that.
Absolutely. I totally agree with what you say. I want to add on to the part about doctors. Well, doctors are people who look after your health. Actors, performers, and artists are the doctors of your soul. That's what I would
Yeah,
say. Because
love
without
that.
them, think about it. Without them, we don't have the joy we have right now. We don't have the inspirations. Imagine the last Netflix series or the last film you watch. Did it inspire you? Did it give you a message? Did it make you more confident? Did you want to be like Superman and break down all boundaries? Or did you want to be a scientist or like a doctor, just like in those Netflix series like Grey's Anatomy? They are the people who give you ideas. And I think artists are like people who feed your soul the right amount of nutrition to give you the oomph to find out who you are. In a way, trying to inspire you to pursue who you are. And coming to parts about the voicing of opinions when it comes to like the social movements, whether it be about feminism or like Black Lives Matter, I would like to remind everyone these things are very common. You've seen it all over history. Just look at Malaysia gaining its independence in 1957. That was a part where everyone banded together to try to end the tyranny from the British Empire, because they were exploiting a lot of the minerals, teas, coffee, and natural resources that we could have built an economy on. That was one big example of how the leaders back then were voicing themselves authentically. They want an independent country. They want freedom for everyone in this country to build an economy and not be under the servitude of the British Empire, which was the biggest company at that back then. The British East India Company controlled so many colonies from India to the Southeast Asia and even China. They suppressed many harbors like Shanghai, Hong Kong back then for economic gain. And like the people back then who fought for their independence, similar to how Gandhi protested with a hunger strike. These people are being the most authentic in themselves because they were true to themselves, and that truth is what helped them gain that advantage, helped them succeed in becoming the inspiration of the next generation. Just look at Nelson Mandela. He suffered so much, but it was true to his heart that he wanted South Africa to be independent. Just look at George Washington, or or like people in Asia such as Tunku Abdul Rahman, who fought for Malaysian independence. they they suffer a lot, and I kid you not, they gone through a lot of hassle trying to debate, trying to fight against, trying to wage a war which they could die for. They die in. Why did they do it? Because it was true to them that they deserve better. And that may be a far cry from just drinking a bunch of shots in a party to please people, but I hope you guys can draw a bit of parallels from that, because we in our way, we can be our own George Washington, our Nelson Mandela, if we be authentic to ourselves. And this battle could not, maybe not be on a country level or a universal level. It could be you with your work, your boss giving you too much pressure, your friends teasing you for being maybe maybe a different body size, or maybe it could be your parents putting that pressure for you to pursue a career that you know that you don't have the passion for. These are the battles that you might need to consider fighting independence for, which is a very interesting part. That would be the cultural aspect which I want everyone to think about. Tie it in with language. Maybe that you'll find something that we haven't thought about, and do share to us. And now let's talk about how can we better express ourselves authentically. It's a very informational part, and I would like to gauge Shanae's opinions of how could you be more authentic. Maybe share a bit of some acting exercises or creative exercises which you have learned along the years that help you project yourself in the most authentic way, whether it be portraying a acting role, or just being yourself in poetry, or being in a activist role, sort of.
Yes, of course. I'd just like to draw upon what we were just saying. I think another reason why self-expression, I'll tell you how I express myself and ways to do it. But I think another important thing is that we live in a society where we know that there's, as much as we have these protests and we're moving forward, we're classed as a minority, and we have to remember that we're constantly oppressed, and we're constantly reminded. I'm not in the Western world, especially of our place, almost of like we'll never almost be like equal. And I think this is why it's important to express yourself, to express your views, because in numbers, things are better. And to express yourself is just a thing of, it's soulful. It's so soulful to be able to be in a world where there's systems put in place and you can break that because you don't want that for yourself. If you're happy with the ways of the world, and you want to live like that, and that's how you authentically want to be, then so be it. Because it's so important, even at the smallest of things, like if somebody does the dishes like and they keep leaving the dishes over and over again, instead of you to build up that anger, which is almost poison, for you to express that. And there's ways of expressing things, there's ways of saying things, because instead of you to be like, oh my gosh, you keep leaving these dishes, there's ways of saying things like, hey, can I just pull you to one side and just let you know, let me just voice to you that you've been doing this for a while now, I'd like you to stop this. Because there's so many ways to express yourself. And coming on to ways to express yourself, I was very, like I said, I was very lucky because I lived between my mum and my dad, my mum being British and my dad being from Sierra Leone. So it was two differing households. And the way I express myself is through the arts, of course. I write, I do spoken word, and I do acting, but I do these things because I have things that I want to say about being a woman, about equality, about being a feminist, about being a person of color, about being working class, about the ways of the world, and about oppression, and about my political views, my social views. I put this through my creativity as a performer. So I feel like when things are done through song and dance and theater and movement, it's enjoyable. It's instead of somebody to constantly come up to you and be like, this is how I feel, and give a long monologue. When things are done through the arts, it's almost like, this is so fascinating to watch, because when things are aesthetically pleasing, it's like, wow, and it almost sinks into the memory better. The ways, also another thing is journaling. I would highly recommend for people that are learning about self-expression to journal, to almost, you don't have to do it every day, but check in with yourself. And there's a thing that we do in acting, which is called, I think it's called conscious papers, which is basically wake up in the morning and, or you can do this at any time of day you like, but I feel like the morning is better. And you just write. And at first it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel like, what am I writing? I don't know what's going on. But you write at least for 5 minutes. You just write. And it might be like, for instance, like, and now I am just on this Zoom call and my laptop says Dell on it and I have a pink highlighter which really stands out, and I've realized that my water is actually finished. I didn't think about that. That was coming from, that wasn't me thinking. And that is a great way of self-expression, because it's actually a way of checking in with yourself unconsciously, because we're conscious beings, and to be able to check in with yourself unconsciously through this is to be able to see actually what's on your subconscious, what's on your mind, what's actually bothering you, or what's making you happy. And it's great for mental health. Yeah. And other ways, two things that I do personally, which is a way of almost from getting away from the ways of the world and being present, because as we know, it's very hard to be present in a world where there are things constantly happening. Meditation and yoga. People have this perception that you have to be like spiritual to meditate and do yoga. In fact, no, it's great for mental health, because yoga and meditation teaches you how to be present in the present moment, teaches you to be still and to accept things for what they are. And there's a thing that they teach you in medication that when we have these negative thoughts, imagine our mind is a blue sky, and sometimes it's going to rain and sometimes there's going to be dark clouds, and that's the symbolism of how negative thoughts are going to come and eventually how they'll pass. And I think that's a great way of helping yourself, just checking in with yourself, because it's great to express yourself, self-expression, but you also have to check in with yourself and be like, how am I expressing myself the most authentically, and how can I make sure to better my mental health and my physical health, to make sure that I am being the most authentic person. Because when your mind is correct, when your mind is in a good place, that's when you can most authentically be yourself. So meditation and yoga is great to almost train yourself to make sure you're being able to be in the right mentality to express yourself.
That's amazing. You share a lot of points which I practice myself too. So I'll share my points about how I train myself to be more self-expressive or at least more calm when it comes to having challenges. So I'm a very analytical person. I work with numbers, I work with statistics. If you see me presenting certain results, I'd like to show graphs, I like to show analytical stuff. So here's three things I practice. One, I do gratitude journaling. So if you're a fan of the YouTube channel Kurzgesagt, this is my gratitude journal, and I journal a lot. This is like on a daily basis. I may not be consistent, but I journal whenever I could, especially when I have a rough day or a happy day. Why?
Same,
Because
Justin.
no way.
Yes,
Sweet.
exactly the
Yes.
same type of thing.
Oh man, I love yours. It's so colorful. It has highlights and everything. Mine's
And
just
that's
like
my point. Yes, when something looks good, you tend to be engaged more. So I even done that for myself. So yes, I love that you do that.
awesome. I really got to learn how to do the highlights too. But back to this point, what I like to do is every week I look back at what I journal and I try to look at what the bad days were or what the good days were. For example, ju- I'm making this up. Oh, I had a horrible day at work because of XYZ. Then I look for consistencies. Does my whole week did it repeat? Did such things came up more than twice or thrice? And having noticed that it might be happening on a consistent level, I need to take actions. Next week, plan an intervention. If I'm having too much work, next week I'm plan a meeting with my supervisor and said, "Hey, I'm getting a little stressed out. I think I need to ease up on the workload. Would that be okay? I think I could work much better if I were able to split this job from like this or like that." If I have happy days, I notice that, wait a minute, I notice whenever I did yoga, I tend to be very happy. That should be something I repeat. Always repeat the good things that happen in your life that you notice and try to change the bad things that come up more consistent. This is more an active way and a very analytical way to change your lifestyle in according to how you feel. And I think that will help build a mindset that lets you be very authentic, because if you don't do journaling, you won't know what makes you angry, what makes you sad, what makes you happy, and what makes you cry. If you don't know, you might end up in therapy paying hundreds or thousands of dollars for them to figure out your problem, whereas you could have figured out this problem early on with just consistent journaling. And this has many back scientific papers to back up. Journaling is very highly reported in the scientific community that help many patients with depression actually solve their problems, because when you solve the root problems that contributes to your sadness or to your disliking or to your bad days, you can nip it in the bud early and stop it from there. Another thing I like doing is yoga. There's two types of yoga I practice: gratitude yoga and yoga nidra. You can find lots of YouTube channels, or you can use apps if you prefer. Gratitude yoga tends to reflect on the things that happen that makes you smile. Yoga nidra is a very special type of yoga where I fall asleep all the time. So if you're an insomniac who couldn't fall asleep at night, type yoga nidra. Nidra is Nidra. I guarantee you 5 minutes or 10 minutes in you will fall asleep, because it happened to me when I finish a workout, like for example a very cardio sort of workout. Let me type the word yoga nidra in the chat for everyone. Yoga nidra. Oh, when I finish a workout, you tend to be very pumped up. You tend to be like your blood's pumping, you're very alert. And trust me on this, after a strenuous workout, when I do yoga nidra, I fell asleep on the floor, because in yoga nidra, you have to lie on your back and do breathing exercises and reflections. And gosh, I really fell asleep. There is this guy called Michael Seeley. Let me try to.
Yes. Oh, my favorites.
Oh
Yes.
man, I'm not sure if I spelled him correctly. I think I spelled him wrongly, but if you
He's
know the
very
correct.
popular though, so he will come up. There's a page as well. I'll put it. Let me see if I can type it. But it's called "Live the Life You Love,"
Mhm.
and it's meditation, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And there's frequencies to fall asleep to. Let me put it in the chats for you all.
Yeah. The crazy thing is how I came across Yoga Nidra from Michael Seeley was a neuroscientist from Stanford recommending it. And when you hear neuroscientist and you hear Stanford, this is something very interesting to look on because they the all the research that this guy tries to do from Stanford is based on Yoga Nidra. It's crazy. And last but not least, the third technique I practice is to always talk to friends at a fixed time. I consistently have my off days or one times every 2 weeks to get a friend and reflect. We talk about how our week have went because we're trying to troubleshoot the things that are happening that are good and bad, and having a friend to help us with it is very useful because they can notice things that we don't, and it's very obvious. For example, like you might you might you might be blaming your you might be blaming your bad days on a poor breakfast, but actually your friend found out, hey, I don't think it's the poor breakfast, I think you just lack sleep, you don't sleep well, when you say things like X, Y, and Z. Because a friend who knows you well would be very, very good in troubleshooting the things that you need to be changing. So to rephrase, three things I do is gratitude journaling, reflect on what happened in that week, yoga nidra or gratitude yoga, any of that will do, or any form of yoga actually, and as long as they promote breathing exercises. And last but not least, meeting up a friend to reflect because they are the best people to tell you what's going on. So I have a post-it note on my wall here that reminds me to keep doing that. And one exercise I like to do, actually two of them, is whenever I feel stressed or when during work I tend to doze off a bit, I try to do breathing exercises. And this is very easy to do. I breathe in, hold my breath for maybe 5 to 10 seconds, as long as you can, breathe out, and keep doing it for 1 minute. It resets your mind. Think about it because breathing exercises, from a scientific perspective, is very important. And how does it resets your mind? Because when you get more oxygen, your cells have more energy to work on. That's the basic concept. Without getting too scientific, because I don't want to get overcomplicated. But there is a neuroscientist from Stanford. His name is Andrew Huberman. Let me write that in the chat. And if I'm sure some of you may notice Andrew Huberman, this name came out, especially Zeni, because I shared a podcast about productivity in the past. This guy teaches how to reset your mind when you start to lose focus. There are three elements from him: breathing exercises, a proper diet, and also constant mental rewards. Physical rewards don't work well as mental rewards, and think of it as patting yourself in the back in a mental state. Whenever you accomplish something or you did 10% of a task, congratulate yourself in your mind because it makes a huge difference. It makes a mile because when you do these things, you're motivating yourself to go forward. And I'll be honest, whenever you have work or whenever you have a project, it never ends. When you finish one, another problem comes up. When you finish one part, you get the next assignment. It will never end. And when you wait until it ends to congratulate yourself, you'd have nothing else to do. So always remind yourself to congratulate. Hey, you did fantastic work. Of course, you might not have done 20%, but hey, 10% was really good because you were stuck in that jam and you gone through that jam without throwing a tantrum or without having road rage, and you listened to a podcast. Your day was actually really good. And this type of thinking can only come from gratitude journaling and constant mental rewarding because the to have a mindset where you constantly mentally congratulate yourself has to be done through gratitude journaling. Because when you have the habit of reflecting on your days and like, hey, I actually had a really good day, and I noticed that doing this gives me a very good feeling. You are trying to build a subconscious network in your mind, or habit to say, to build that positive mindset. And this is actually the secret that a lot of big CEOs or big successful entrepreneurs do. If you look at Elon Musk, it's not easy managing 9 companies, from PayPal to Tesla to the Boring Company to the to SpaceX. There's so much stress that goes into it. How does it handle it? How does it do it all? Mental rewards. And not a lot of people will tell you that, because these are the things that they won't teach you. These are the things that you need to teach yourself, because your mind is yours and you only know yourself best. So I'm going a little bit off tangent at the moment. So let me look back at my notes. So let's look at ways to be honest with ourselves and communicate with others. So I'm sure Shanae has experienced many experiences where people disagree with opinions and all. And it's so important to not get too angry or overcome by the reactions, because we want to have a dialogue. We want to have a conversation that is positive, that brings a good outcome. So I would like to ask about Shanae's experience or opinions on this.
Yes, of course. There are definitely ways of saying things. And for instance, sometimes it can just be from a thing of like, I don't like what you're doing, or no, I disagree. But instead of the last thing you want is to have an argument, because when something is heated and when you're both feeling rage, nothing's going to get said. But what happens when you can't have a conversation? What happens when somebody doesn't want to listen? Movements, like movements and protests. And like I said, people are better in numbers. Imagine you need to find your community, like you need to find people with the same beliefs as you, and then you build on that community. Then you hear these things, like me and Justin both obviously like yoga. We express ourselves through yoga, and then I'm just like, oh, okay, let me note this down, because this is something that I can build upon. Like I didn't even know that Nindra yoga was a thing, and I'm definitely going to do that tonight. But yes, sometimes people aren't going to want to listen, because sometimes people don't care, or people have different views, or people are built different. And you have to keep doing it. When you believe something enough, you have to keep pursuing it. You have to keep at it. And whether you want to do this through the arts, or whether you find your own way. And I think the people that are just starting out to learn to express themselves, I think definitely, like what we've discussed, yoga and gratitude journals. But I've been in spaces where people, even drama school, where it's the norm for middle class white people, white skinny, coming from rich families, and I've been like, I don't like this. I want to see myself in the industry. I'm going to audition, and I expressed myself to the point where I didn't just go and think I'm worthy enough to take up that space. I actually done a monologue from somebody that had a similar story. And if you guys ever get the chance, I think it would be great. It's a short read, it's a short play, and it's called Half Breed by Natasha Marshall. And I'll type it in. But it's basically a play that I decided, hey, do you know what? I'm going to take this risk in expressing myself in an uncomfortable environment where this isn't normally the norm, because as we know through theatre and theatre history, it was for the middle class people. And even like Shakespeare's Globe is built in where the peasants would actually stand almost, and then the white rich people would sit. That's why it's built in a specific way. But yeah, what I'd done is I said, I'm going to express myself by taking up this space, by going to this uncomfortable environment and doing a monologue, which was basically a story of a woman that had a similar story of me, of how she was oppressed, of how she was a mixed race woman who actually wanted to go to drama school. It was such a convenient story to find. I was just like, whoa. And how her story of getting to that drama school was people was like calling her racial things, basically constantly oppressing her, constantly reminding her, like saying the most awful things to her, and how she wasn't worthy, and how she decided to express herself in the fact of taking a risk of being like, do you know what? I'm not going to listen to this. I'm going to do what I most authentically want to do, which is to not listen to these oppressive people and to pursue my dreams and to move to this city and to do these things. And she did that, because what did she do? She had a belief. She wanted to express herself in the facts that instead of listening or being like, oh no, let me just carry on to fit in with other people, let me actually go out there and let me express myself and say what I have to say. And that's what I done. And I think it's very important to also, when you're wanting to express yourself, to find people that look like you, to find people with the same belief systems as you, to find people that are doing what you want to do, because then you can draw from what they've done to get there. And to understand that there's other people that have the same beliefs as you. There's communities for everything. Like even when you go to like university or something, I haven't been yet because I'll hopefully go to drama school this year, but there are literally for communities where people love like toast so much or something, or tea, or something so specific that they build a community upon it to be able to have these places where they express themselves. And because people will always have something to say, but it's so important, even if it's the smallest thing. Like I think one of the smallest things that I think is important, when it's not small to me, but natural hair care, natural skin and hair care is very important to me, to the point where I'm always expressing myself through, I'm finding people on my social media that embrace this. I'm finding people in person. I'm finding videos on this. So to basically just summarize, finding people that believe in the same things as you, and taking risks. You have to take risks in this life. You know, look at us with all our great leaders. They've taken risks. They have been starved themselves. They have been beaten. You know, like if it wasn't for history and the people self-expressing, I wouldn't even be here. I was once classed as someone that should be lynched. Like if I was classed as a half-breed, I was classed as something that was wrong. I came from a family that my dad being black and my mum being white, that could have never happened, because I would have been formed via rape, because a white woman and a white man wasn't seen as normal, because obviously it was oppressed. There was in a time of race. So if it wasn't for people that decided, hey, do you know what, this isn't right, I'm going to make movements, I'm going to express myself, and people died. We have so many great people that believed in something so much to the point where they died, or they put their life on the line, or they got beaten, or they starved, or they was homeless, all these things. But when you believe something enough, and when you live with your truth, I would much rather die that way, or well, worst case scenario, hopefully we don't die, but I would much rather know that I lived knowing that I believed in something, and I done what I possibly can to remain with my truth and express this.
Amen to that. So I want to add on to that with a few points from my experience. And I would like to share that one of the most expressive people I ever met were in fact nerds or introverts. Why? Because if you love Star Wars, if you love Star Trek, if you love anime, the people who love these shows, who gather in Comic Con or Comic Fiesta, are the most expressive people, because they dress up. They talk about their passions. And when you talk about university people who love toast or tea, man, I would say that the people in Comic Con take it a mile further, because you see them cosplaying, you see them dressing up as Superman or Naruto or like their favorite superheroes. These people find a way to express themselves in a way that in a space that is safe, like Comic Con. They feel no one's judging them. They feel no one is telling them you shouldn't be like this. You shouldn't dress like that. You can't be like this. And what I want to convey is everyone should find their Comic Con. Not to say like go find a literal Comic Con and dress as your superhero. Find that space that makes you comfortable to be yourself and you don't feel judged, where other people can let you be who you are. And please please do and this can be in any form, whether it be a scouting club, a fishing club, could be a music school, could be your Toastmasters club, or could be anywhere else. Find that space that accepts you. One example from Toastmasters is if you want to be a better public speaker, if you come into this, we will never judge you for how you speak. We want you to be how the best that you could be in terms of speaking. Same goes to music school, same goes to anywhere else. The moment that a society starts to deject you or discourage you is the moment that you should find a new one. So along the years, I found different ways to express myself, in more than just from speaking or from activities that, for example, like arts and all. I like to express myself through what I wear. I used when I was younger, I used to like to wear branded stuff like Nikes or like the I don't have Gucci's, but something like Gucci's because they look prestigious. But now I just wear shirts I really like. I wear this camp shirt because I love camp. I wear a certain brand, for example. I can't. Maybe I'll make this up. Like a brand that supports really sustainable energy, or a brand that supports planting trees in places after deforestation. I want to express my opinions of those through the wear things I wear. So maybe I would buy a T-shirt, very nicely designed, that shows sustainability, to show that I am this person. Other ways of self-expression I've done is composing music. So if you look at my Instagram, I made 3 videos of guitar videos, and I like to play jazz, or I like to play a bit of bluesy stuff. So music is my outlook on life. Is my way to communicate more than just speech. And if you look at history, it's very interesting because if you look at blues, its history came from Louisiana in America, where slavery then was so rampant. People who were under slavery were trying to express themselves, and blues became their their, so to say, Comic Con. They express themselves so strongly, their opinions, through that to that musical form, and look where it gotten us today. John Mayer or B.B. King, all the amazing other musicians that are out there. They influence other genres too, like Guns N' Roses. Like the guitarist from Guns N' Roses was influenced by B.B. King, or maybe how R&B today is was also influenced by jazz and blues back then. I'm not too up to date with the history, but if you do some digging, you'll find out that a lot of these things came from a came from a similar heritage, similar history of needing to voice out an opinion. And that came in the form of music. And you could do this same thing in any way, whether it be wearing a merchandise you believe in. Maybe it could be your favorite YouTuber. Maybe it could be a band T-shirt. You could write music. You could write poetry, and which I want to later ask Sinead later on if you could perform one of your most favorite poems or something like
Yes, I would love to. And I'm just currently writing in the chat the play that I mentioned. So yes, I would definitely love to do that.
No worries. So I'll give you some time while I explain another part of how we can better express ourselves. So now I've talked about the outlooks or the musical aspects or the non-verbal aspects of self-expression. Here's how I would define the verbal aspects. So let me be very transparent and say that everyone's biased in this world, regardless whether you're white, you're Asian, you're from African descent. Everyone is biased. We have our biases, and we have to admit it. But that's okay, because knowing our biases will help us be more empathetic. And here's how you could have a very decent conversation or very positive dialogue when it comes to talking about your beliefs. First, be honest. Honesty is the best policy. Be sincere to yourself and to others. We have our biases, so if you have a bias from your end, acknowledge it and try and reason from it. Listen. That's the second point. Listen to what is being said, because like I said, language may define their reality, and sometimes their language can be misinterpreted from how colors like blue and green is similar in the Amazonian tribes, from how Chinese and Mandarin does not have a past tense, from how English, the word we, is different from how Malay express it. Think about think about language and listen whether or not how are they trying to express their opinions, because we may interpret them differently and we may have our biased opinions on them. So we have honesty, we have listening, and now we must understand. When we listened, we must understand what they're trying to say. And I'm sure this is the most difficult part when it comes to being a teacher, because understanding kids can be a very huge challenge. And from my experience working in a summer camp, it was difficult for me to understand the perspective of kids because their world is so much different. And when I was a kid, I had a different mindset to who I am today. I was always thinking as a kid, like I don't want to be boring or like a or like one of those adults. But today I feel like I became one of those boring adults in a certain way. But always try to understand from their point of view, whether it's an adult, an elderly, or a child. And if you don't ask, which is the fourth point, ask them, like, oh, what do you mean by this? Because the first step to understanding is asking. Honesty, listening, understanding, asking. And then last but not least, when you have all these four spices, you can come to empathize. Empathizing is the most important thing. Doctors empathize with patients. Consultants empathize with business leaders. Lawyers empathize with the defendants or the people at charge. Empathy is the most important thing that a lot of people neglect. So when it comes to empathy, it it ties into the last 4 points of being honest to yourself first, listening to one another, understanding their opinions, try to empathize, and then you can come to reason with them, or you can come to argue with them. And when you argue, you will be more clear at your mind, because I'm sure we have many instances of arguing, especially in relationships, where we tend to argue. And what are we trying to do? Are we trying to reason, or are we trying to appease our ego? Because at times we are at the wrong and we just don't want to be wrong. Think, reflect on it. Try to understand, and it comes back to the first point, honesty. Are you trying to appease your ego? Are you trying to make a statement? And is that statement for the benefit of everyone, or is it just yourself? Because at times I can find my biases clogging my ability to empathize with one another. Think about it, which is why I tie into the parts about understanding towards language and culture. Understand, and that in that way we can build a better dialogue where we won't shout at each other and seeing riots happening as such. It might seem very simple, but it's actually extremely difficult. And I'm sure we all have been there, whether it's in relationships at work or with our parents or our kids. We all been there. So I hope that we could have built this mindset to actively remind ourselves about it. Even if we miss one of the steps, at least it could prevent us from going into a very, into a path that we cannot return. Because after all, I believe friendship is very important. I believe love is very important, and I don't want these things to be to be ruined by just some very unnecessary arguments. So yeah, it can be difficult, and as well, it might be difficult to explain to people who are already opinionated, already consumed with emotions. But when it comes to other people being impatient, the only thing we could do is be patient with ourselves. Because the last thing we want is something wrong to happen. Whether it be a case of maybe someone was driving and hit your car, but then came out to blame you for it in the midst of a road rage, or maybe someone walking past you calling you a racial slur. What justice does it do to like fight back? Of course, we have to fight for our respect, for our own dignity, but we have to differentiate the gray area. We have to differentiate what is really worth fighting for and what is not worth fighting for. For example, maybe a very dumb argument with a loved one is not worth fighting for. Your 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 pride in your own heritage, that is something worth fighting for. So that's something to think about when it comes to such discussions. And now I've gone through pretty much all of my topics for this session. And if Shanae would like to add on, you may. And if you want to proceed to perform your most passionate speech, or
Yeah,
please do.
I was just finding it and I found it in the perfect time. It was on my laptop because I have so much poetry everywhere. And my plan is to basically eventually like have like a book with all my poetry as almost like a self-help mechanism of my creativity, because I'm very passionate about like equality and like mental health and things. So I would eventually love to just put it all in one place. But I found my poem, and just to draw on everything that we said, I just wondered if obviously not everybody is an actor and confident to speak on camera or anything, but I was just wondering if anybody had like any questions or anything they'd like to ask me or Justin. Feel free to put it in the comments, or feel free to like to speak now if there's anything you want to ask me, or like if yeah, feel free. I also have Instagram as well, because a lot of my work is on like YouTube and Instagram. I have like a little poetry section of like snippets of talks that I've done and like some of my poems. I'm trying to get more out there. So I'll put my Instagram as well if anybody ever wants to have a little look or follow. I'll also do a poem. Let me just, but whilst I'm doing this, if anybody has anything to say, feel free. But let me type in the chat my Instagram in case anybody wants to.
This is your chance to be self-expressive.
Yes, don't be scared. If you want to just even say like when a time that you've been self-expressive or anything that you'd like to know more about. I forgot how to type in here.
No worries. Like you can
Oh, here we
use
go.
the chat.
Yes, found it.
Awesome. So does anyone have any questions for Shanae?
That's
Like
my Instagram.
maybe about acting, or maybe about being genuine. Any questions at all? No, yeah.
Hi, Justin. Steven here. Thanks for organizing this wonderful session. I was listening just now. I have a question regarding acting. I've heard about the term method acting. What does it mean by method acting? I think some famous actors practice that. Thanks.
Yeah, method acting is a type of acting where you basically completely embody and live as the character. So normally when you would act, you would basically go into the rehearsal space or go on set, and then you would play the character, and once you finished you would just then leave and be yourself. But method acting is literally when you're developing a character or when you're playing a character on set or on stage, you live as that character. So say I had just I was on stage and I was living as the character Wendy as Peter Pan still, but instead of breaking that character, I would come home and I would go about and still live as that character. So method acting is very extreme. It's great to do. Some people like to do it. Some people, even on set, they don't necessarily come home and live as the character. Sometimes on set, they would still like to be addressed as the character. It's a form of embodying the character so you can stay most authentic and true instead of breaking the character and having to come back to it. Some people find it easier to stay as that character. So yeah, it's a type of acting where you live and breathe as the character for an extended period of time. It's very interesting, but it's also very dangerous because, as we know, there's been certain actors. I think his name is Christian Bell, and he is a very extreme type of method actor to the point where he played the role of the Joker in, I can't remember what, Suicide Squad, is it?
Yes, that was the one.
Yes, to the point where even on set, he would actually get people to like speak to him as they would to that character. He even got dead rats sent to him. That's how extreme it is. And then another role, because he was such a method actor, he had to be this massive guy for a role to the point where he would drink melted ice cream to put on this weight. And then he lost all of this weight for another role. So it's an extreme type form of acting where you basically live and breathe as the character. But it's really cool. It's really cool.
Man, to add on to that, one of the best, one another. Uh, Fonglon, did you want to say something? No worries. So I believe another example would be Hakon Phoenix. I believe he also embodied the
Yeah.
character so well. Because if you look at the Joker film, oh my God, I was legitimately convinced that, that was the Joker, and he
Yeah.
played it. Oh my God, I'm just mind blown by how he just. If you look at the behind the scenes, he every scene he makes is so different. He doesn't go by the script. He plays the character and plays how the character should be portrayed in the most authentic way,
Yeah.
which brings to our topic here actually. Man,
Yes. And he has a lot to say as well. If you watch his speeches, he's a vegan and he's an activist for Black lives as well. And he got an award. I can't remember, but it was for the Joker, and he didn't even take the award because this is a very this is a great way for self-expression, to the point where he believed so much in equality and Black people and people of color being on set and being a vegan, to the point where he went to collect his award, but he didn't take the award. He basically said, we need to make change. He used that moment, instead of actually taking that reward and staying quiet about his issues, he decided, I'm not taking this reward, but I'm going to say, I'm great that we was able to do this film and things, but we need to make change. There's not enough people of color. There's not enough equality. So that's he's a great person to basically follow and watch his speeches on self-expression, because he's an amazing person. He goes to these marches to express himself and these protests and things.
absolutely. And that made a lot of changes because the recent Oscars, I believe Minari was a Asian film that won an award, not in the Asian category, but the main best film category. And if you guys haven't watched Minari, it's about a story about Japanese immigrants who went to America. I haven't watched it myself, but I do plan to watch it as soon as I could. So check it out, Minari. It's apparently just like Parasite, who won an award last year. So yeah. Anyway, back to Shanae, or if anyone else have any questions about acting, if you want to be an actor yourself, you could ask that questions too. Like, do I need to be a certain look of it or a certain person to be it? And obviously, we'll say no. You can be yourself, and you can always. Everyone can be an actor.
Yeah, I'll just give a few tips anyway. But yeah, if you do have any questions, like, feel free to message me on Instagram and things. Yeah, but to be an actor, a few years, well, not even, yeah, to be an actor is, a lot of people know that it was for like the middle class white society. Um, and it was almost like kings and queens and to go see theatre, but it wasn't really for like the working class. But acting has changed a lot, and there's so many routes. And the route that I took for acting, I'm very lucky in the sense that I genuinely have the belief, when you are so passionate about something, it will work out for you. Because I started off acting, I done GCSE acting, and then I remember doing it and being like, whoa, this is pretty cool. I could do this for the rest of my life. And this is why you should always live in your truth, because when you love something, it doesn't feel like work, it doesn't feel like a job. Um, and long story cut short, I trained, I went to like a performing arts school, and then I got an agent. I would do like little small bits and bobs. And it's only recently, actually starting from September last year, where I got into like big things. Like I filmed for like big brands like Macmillan Cancer Support, Durex, the Safe Sex organization, and I've just filmed like a yoga commercial and a really cool hair brand. And to get into the industry is a thing of, I think it's important to go to workshops and to train in some form, but you don't necessarily have to go to drama school. I haven't been to drama school yet, and I'm in the industry. But I want to go to drama school now because I want to learn my craft as an actor, different styles, and decide what is it I really want to do. Getting agent. If you want to do acting, it's important to get some what's called headshots. And headshots are basically a form of like pictures of you, basically like from like the shoulders, like here, to basically see what you look like. So you take these and then you basically find agents in your area, and you basically like email them asking for representation. You also, it's very important to make your own work, and you never know who's watching. That's the thing. Like if you perform in theatre or if you do something, you don't know who's watching, and it's just good to be nice. A lot of the jobs I think I've got through audition is because I genuinely put my personality, and I'm self-expressive. So when they ask for my opinion, I don't tell them what they want to hear. I tell them what I believe. So express yourself. Be nice because you don't know who you're speaking to. Showcase, do your own work, and use your platform, even on Instagram and YouTube and things. Put your work online and hashtag things that are popular, like hashtag actor, hashtag what it's about and things. And yeah, there's so many different ways. It's not, you don't have to go to drama school and do all these things. It's, I think, research in your, because it's different for me living in like London. Research if you want to do these things, even if you want to be a musician. All this, they're so accessible. At one point there wasn't for people of color, there wasn't, but now more than ever, because of everything that's going on, it's our time is coming that you're seeing more things of people of color. And that's my advice.
That's absolutely amazing. And to add on to that, you don't have to be very suave or very charismatic or anything. You can be you can be yourself. And one of the actors who actually is the most himself is actually Jim Carrey. If you've seen his
Yeah,
comedic films, he
yeah.
if maybe when he was younger, a lot of kids will call him a weirdo because he acts so funny, like in the movie like The Mask or like any other Jim Carrey film, like especially the recent one with Sonic the Hedgehog. He was very quirky, very expressive, but the most important thing that he was genuine. Maybe kids call him a weirdo and bully him when he's young, but look at him now.
But now look at him. What is the norm though? What is the norm? Is that society's views or is that your views? Like what is generalized as normal? So this is going to happen there because not everybody is the same. And when you are different, and you should be different, because you shouldn't want to be a goat. You shouldn't want to be somebody that follows. You should be somebody that goes through that. But now look at him. Imagine he was bullied in school. Imagine if he didn't express himself. He wouldn't be. He is amazing, and he's political, and he is authentic, and now he lives this amazing self-expressive life. So that's the personification of how you will go through things. You'll go through trials and tribulations, but you have to remain authentic. And yeah, I agree.
Exactly. Just look at him now. He has become such a role model for all these I would say genuine people out there. Advocated for people to express themselves however they want. If you want to be as quirky as Jim Carrey, it's okay because people look up to him now, and back then he probably did not have someone to look up. Maybe it would be Charlie Chaplin, but now we could look up to Jim Carrey as how Jim Carrey looked up to Charlie Chaplin. And I hope that gives you an idea that hey, it's okay because if you want to be quirky or if you want to tell dad jokes all day, just look at the people who made it
Please
today.
do live your truth, and I am an advocate for it. Like, I am somebody that doesn't wear makeup on purpose sometimes because I want people to know that I have scars. I'm somebody that doesn't have the best of teeth. I look after myself. I am a complete advocate for self-love, but my point is when I do my acting, when I go to these auditions, I want people to know that I am mixed race. This is what my hair looks like. This is my natural skin. I'm curvy. I'm not the stereotypical I'm the girl that like I need a superhero. I am the superhero. I don't need a superhero to come and take me. And It's important whether you believe this or whatever you believe, you have to stand for it. And sometimes people will laugh and people will bully, or people will be like, oh my gosh, who do you think you are? Or like, yeah, even me in school, like I was genuinely bullied so bad because I looked different, and I was called some awful things. Like I am African, but I was called like a Paki, I was called a nigger, like I was bullied for my hair, so I never really had my hair out. And I remember all these things happened to me, and it really broke me. It really, really did. And that's the thing with being self-expressive. Some of the things are really it's gonna hurt, it's gonna break you. But then I grew into a woman, and I realized, like, hold on a second. Could you imagine if I believed this and if I lived for these people to make them feel comfortable whilst I'm feeling uncomfortable oppressing myself when I'm already in an oppressive world, being a person of color and a curvy woman? So I decided to express myself, and now I make like what you do by wearing clothing to express yourself. I do this through the way that I look. I make sure that I have my natural hair out. I make sure that I show people my skin, and I make sure that people will see my curves and people see my work. And I talk about the uncomfortable things in a creative way, which you'll get to see through one of my poems. But yes, expression is so important. So important.
Absolutely. And now we're approaching the end of the session. So I would really love for Chanai to end the session with her favorite poem. Perhaps you could explain what it is and give a bit of background before performing it. And then, ladies and gentlemen, please take note of how Chanai self-express.
Yes. So I am, as you know, I'm a writer, spoken word artist, and an actor. But I started writing from a young age, and I like to write, but I genuinely believe that I'm gifted, because I don't like to force my writing. Ideas come to me and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I need to write this down. And this is what happened with this poem. This poem, actually, I can't remember the specific time. Actually, it was when the Black Lives Matter protest started. And it was, the poem's called I Feel Like. And it was in my response to how I felt like, sorry to swear, but absolute oppressive shit, because I felt like, oh my goodness me, like what's going on with the Black Lives Matter protest is affecting me. This is my story, this is my people. So this is my response of how I was feeling and how I felt in society as a person of color and as a woman. So yeah, it's called I Feel Like. I feel like a smoking cigarette. I'm bad for myself, hard on myself, not just on my throat, but on my mental and physical health. I feel like I have a voice though, and today it will be heard. I feel like I'm partly privileged, but I'm talking happiness, health, and wealth wise, as I know my poetic truth, somewhat, in fact, completely overwhelmed by the truth that I have to hashtag Black Lives Matter and educate myself on behalf of my people. On behalf of the half of myself that is Black, mixed, and full of sick shame and heartbreak, that systemic racism, white privilege, slavery, and white supremacy remains, which means I continue to suffer. I feel like I just become overcome and mother to those of all BAME heritage and those that have and continue to suffer the same as I can, as long as remember being called the most commonly Paki and nigger, from uneducated children from primary school to primarily this age being 21 in 2020. I feel like my words should not have to rhyme, have a Shakespeare de-dum, de-dum, de-dum heartbeat effect for my message to creatively strike where it hurts most. For those of color and those of privilege to understand this place in our society has never been my home. I feel like the news, Insta, and everything to do with the media is breaking my heart, but building up my anger. Knowledge and personal experiences, PTSD-wise, coming to the surface that fighting is wrong. I learnt this in school. But what is right is fighting for the Black and all BAME lives to do. And I will continue to do so, educating myself and supporting anyone who does this also. I feel like, how would you feel? A mixed race woman, but classed as British, big London living, but when it comes to ending racism, the whole world stands still. I feel like I can only educate myself, grieve over my brothers and sisters globally who did not receive the much needed help they needed. In remembrance, comfort myself and those who need it along the way whilst we live in a global pandemic. Watching the clock to race out when lockdown is over. But I'm watching the clock, taking action from now, making sure racism ends now, letting my creativity leak into the hearts and lives, inspire and give insight to all those who need it. See these words of my truth. I love you all. Let these words of mine RIP in your hearts and your memories and actions to personify from my words that Black Lives Matter. Chanai Destiny Bradley Fofana, aka she, her, aka a proud woman of color. Thank you.
That was amazing. I think it was the first time I heard this one because I saw your Instagram. You had a different one. Is this like an add-on to the previous one?
So I write so much poetry, but the thing with my poetry is if anybody asks me to act, I will do whatever you ask me to do. But I feel like with my poetry, it's so personal to the point where it's only recently I've started having these conversations and expressing it because it is so raw. Like, this is how I genuinely felt. And this is the thing with self-expression is so important. But when it's your truth and it's your own emotions and you're not developing a character, it's so personal. It's like going out into the city and standing there naked, but in the personification that that's your soul. So I haven't really expressed my poetry a lot. This is something that I'm planning to do because this is something that's personal to me, my form of self-expression. So you will be seeing a lot more. You will be seeing a lot more adverts, and hopefully we'll get a series this year. Hopefully drama school will happen. But yeah, I love to be able to express myself, not just like be like, oh, it's great to do poetry and be like using metaphors and personification and it's like adjectives to describe great things. But I like to use my platform as a thing of, you know, this is how I feel. This is my political, social views. This is how I identify, and I put that through my creativity.
That's so amazing because I can't wait when you publish a book about this or a collection of poems. I'll be the first in line to put it into my Amazon box.
Yes, I have a plan by the age of, I hope before, but by the age of 30, I have a plan to basically publish all of a collective of my work, because I started writing poetry and stories from like a really young age. So I want to get it all together and organize it as almost poetry and prose, but in a self-help mechanism for people of color and LGBTQ plus people. That's my plan. So yes,
that would be so cool. It would be like a memoir of your experiences across a year, like a
yes,
diary. Yeah,
exactly.
I definitely can't wait for that. Well, it's been such an informative session, and I hope everyone has enjoyed it. And I really want to invite the audience to express themselves on how do they feel about today's session. And if you have any any ideas for improvements or any comments, this is your time to express them. So, Stephen or Valen or Hispan, over to you guys.
First, I would like to thank Chanai. Chanai, did I pronounce your name?
Yeah.
Chanai, thank you so much for sharing your wealth of experience in terms of acting, in terms of expressing yourself. You really given us a lot of insights on how to express ourselves in a authentic way. And also you have also enlightened me on some of the acting things. So thank you very much for that. Because basically, when I was young, I am interested to become an actor. Actually, it's one of my childhood ambitions to be an actor. Yeah, and one of the experiences I had while studying in secondary school, in lower secondary, I was actually acting in a classroom play as well. So we have characters, so we act different characters. It was very memorable. It was very fun. So I truly fondly remember this. And thank you so much for sharing all of this. And I want to thank Justin. Thank you for bringing such a wonderful speaker. Thank you for organizing this. Well done. kudos to you. Really appreciate it. So yeah, so I think I will end my session saying keep up the good work. Yeah, we hope to hear more of such sessions in the near future lah. So by the way, I'm the president of Connaught Toastmasters Club, which is a club in Malaysia in the Kuala Lumpur area. So Justin is actually part of my club members, Toastmasters. So we do have online meetings. So if you like to join us even from where you are, we have Zoom meetings as well on every first Mondays and third Mondays of the month from 7:30 p.m. Malaysian time to 9:30 p.m. So Justin can fill in. If let's say you would like to see how we conduct Toastmaster meeting, do feel free to join us. Yeah.
I would love to. I would definitely get the details of Justin. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Stephen. I just want to add a part on your childhood dreams about being an actor. There are many actors who actually started their careers in their 40s, 50s, 60s, or even older than that.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of any examples. Do you know any examples, Shanae?
Off the top of my head, no. I think Denzel Washington. Who else? Who else? I can't think off the top of my head. But even me, for example, like I haven't been to drama school yet, and I'll be turning 23. And people think you have to go at 18. You have to do all these things. There's all these systems. Who said? Who genuinely said there's no rules and regulations? Even if you want to pursue it as a career or do it as a like a side thing, do it. Go to workshops, go to theatre, look at training, look at even like extra jobs. Like there's so many routes. You just have to genuinely do your research. But when I feel like when something's your dream, oh, you can't give up on it. And I know so many people say it, and it's hard because everybody has to work, everybody has to make money and do these little society things. But there's always room. If you want to do something enough, do it. Like find a day or find a specific time. You're never 24 hours in the day. You're not always busy. So pursue and carry on self-expressing.
To add on to that, if you do want to look for acting opportunities or acting lessons, KL Performing Arts Theatre, KL PAC or Selangor PAC has a lot of these activities actually. Even despite them mostly catering to kids, adults do join them. So do check out like KL PAC Performing Arts Center or the Selangor one or any like studios. It's kind of an upward trend now. We have all this kind of little hidden low key sort of theaters around like in apartment buildings or like in restaurants. They are starting to get more popular, and please do check them out. There's a jazz club in KL near to Chinatown that I forgot the name, but I'll send you the details. They also do a lot of improv or like little dance lessons, which I think you can be built on towards the road to there, because those people is opportunities to network and everything. But I would want to say, never too old to pursue your dreams, because
Yeah.
the only moment that is too late is the moment that you didn't s- that you give up, or like didn't start at all. You might miss some of the shots you take, but you miss all the shots you don't take. All right.
Exactly.
So let's hear from Valen or his fun.
Yes. Thank you so much. Definitely, I really enjoy the session today. I would like to thank both Shanae and Justin, for having such a very informative and insightful session. And I really learned a lot from Shanae today. I'm really grateful, that you have become the speakers today, because you've, definitely enlightened me and, sharing, gave me a better understanding, about how to self-express better. And I mean, like, we are living in such a very, I'll say that it's a very chaotic world right now, right? And some part of the world is sensitive and some part of the world is not really sensitive. And definitely the session that and the sharing that you gave us just now is really informative. So Justin, I really hope that you are going to organize another session like this again. Keep up the good work, and looking forward to learn new things on your next session again.
Thank you, Valen. And last but not least, we have Hifan.
Yes, hello. Actually, I have a question, Chanai. Is there any really big movie or maybe a really famous character that you wish or you dream you want to play on one day, or in the future?
Yes, I would love to. I don't know whether somebody, if you've watched it, it's called I May Destroy You, and her name is Michaela Cole. She's a Black woman, and she's an activist, she's a writer, and she's an actor. I would love to play Michaela Cole because she basically draws from her experiences. It's like there's a program called Chewing Gum, and she basically puts in a creative way how like coming from like an African household and how you have to do all these things, like similar to like the Asian community, how you're forced to be a doctor, like the things that you want to do and like how we're punished and all these things, but she puts it in a funny way. And she also has a lot to say in regards for equality and the things that she believes in. So I would love to play Michaela Cole in I May Destroy You, which is a series which I think is on Netflix or BBC. I also really, in a movie, what is my favorite movie? I really like, who do I really like in a movie? My favorite movie, do you know what I'd like to play? I like movies like psychological movies, like, you know, like Shutter Island and Lucy. I love them. So a character that gets to play that would be really fun, because I feel like do you know when you watch a good film and it's psychological and you watch the end, you're just like, whoa, that makes sense. So I'd love to be in them. I never got into the act. I'm so ashamed to say I haven't watched a lot of Marvel films. So I need to watch Marvel films, and because I feel like superhero characters are pretty cool. So maybe a superhero character would be cool.
And to add on to superhero characters, like, have you watched Black Panther?
Yes,
Of
yes, yes, yes.
course. So to raise more awareness to my Asian peeps, Shenlong is the movie that will be coming out soon. It's gonna be acted by Simu Liu, a Canadian, Asian Canadian, and it's gonna be the same concept with Black Panther. Hopefully, that movie will inspire kids, will inspire people of all ages to be proud of their Asian heritage. Because I think Shenlong will be like the equivalent to Black Panther, but for the Asian community. So look out for that in mid this year or next year. I'm not too sure, and I'm very excited because the whole cast is all really a spot on cast. We have Simu Liu, we have like the Asian actresses like Aquafina, or I keep forgetting their names, but do check out this one. It's gonna be in my opinion more accurate compared to Crazy Rich Asians, because Crazy
Oh,
Rich Asians
yes.
was a bit exaggerated, but I think Shenlong's gonna be much better, even though it's gonna be a fantasy sort of environment. But I think the elements, like how we look at race and everything, is gonna be similar to Black Panther. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. Does anyone else have anything to add on? And while everyone thinks of something, I would like to formally thank Stephen again for allowing me to have this session. Because without Stephen or Tom, I couldn't have this Zoom session. I wouldn't have the audience to to present to. Because this is my Comic Con. This is my way of sharing how I feel about topics, whether it be my experience in event hosting from my first session to my perception of self-expression. I want to thank Stephen and Tom again for supporting me in having these sessions, and I would like to thank them because I've always sort of dreamed to have a podcast one day, and I can't just start off and post it on Spotify like that. I need to build that experience. I need to build the the experience and trying to organize a Zoom like this in the audio, having to control the timing, having to pick topics that are relevant to this day and age. Without Stephen and Tom to support me on this, I wouldn't have been able to have a go in my own Comic Con. So thanks, Stephen.
You're most welcome, Justin. And I would like to congratulate you. You did an awesome job. No? The way you handle your MC, you handle the presentation, conduct the session was very professional, very smooth, very well run, and I really liked your voice intonation. It's just like it's very soothing and it's very pleasant, no? And it's just like any of the podcast speakers that I hear. So good job, well done, Justin. And I really look forward to supporting you, me and Tom and Connaught Toastmaster Club. We really look forward to supporting you in fulfilling your podcast dreams and your speaking workshops and all that. So thank you very much once again for organizing this awesome session. And thank you once again to Chanai. Thank you so much for being the invited speaker for tonight. We really enjoyed it. Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Wonderful. And one last part to talk about the aspects of the organization of this session. Does anyone have any comments like, "Oh, it's too long. Oh, it should have been more organized like this or that"? Does anyone have any critique? Because I think it's okay to be expressive of that because we all are trying to improve. But no worries. If you couldn't think right now, you can always provide them later on through a personal message. Valen, do you have something to say?
Yes. I think the session is just the time frame. The time frame is just nice. It's just fine. And please, keep bringing more speakers, more inspiring speakers, just like Shanae. Maybe not only one, maybe like one or two or three. So that it could be we can get a little bit more perspectives from different speakers. Yeah. So one is okay. I mean, one is fine, but like the more the better, I would say.
Awesome. I'll definitely look into my network. I do want to bring more international folks in because I think they have a lot of perspective that we could learn from, and we have so much to share so that others may learn more about our culture, which is the purpose of this whole thing. I hope Shanae learns something from us, and we definitely learn a lot from Shanae. Awesome.
Yes, I learned so much. Thank you. Even the whole reality with language, I never thought of that. And how, even though we're in different countries and cultures, how we have similar aspects in self-expression and similar things that hinder us. And yeah, and it's so amazing to be able to be like, I am like a normal person like everybody here, but to be able to use my platform and inspire people and also be inspired and hear different perspective of people who are more like I'm a creative, but people who are more based their like self-expression and their jobs are more intellectual based. It's very interesting. So I love things like this. So thank you all and those who watched and took the time. It's such a privilege.
Yes. And to wrap things up again, remember the points I talk about being mindful. So three things: making a journal to have checkpoints on your emotions, trying out yoga gratitude or yoga nidra, and breathing exercises and checking in with friends to have them check on you as well. And the parts that one more part I want to emphasize on is to find your Comic Con. It can be anywhere from your favorite Toastmasters club or to your favorite society or friends or family, even sports as well. Find that. And one more point I need to remind everyone is to, let me see. Oh, yes, the 5 steps. When it comes to talking with people, honesty is the best policy. After you being honest with yourself, identify your biases, listen. Once you listened, understand. If you don't, ask about it. And once you understand, try to empathize. And after empathizing, then present a dialogue. It might seem very systematic or a lot of steps, but this is actually once you practice it once or twice, it's like riding a bike. You'll be very active because these are techniques that, in fact, lawyers or doctors use. In fact, this is actually a doctor's technique when talking to patients because patients come in with a lot of distress. Doctors need to emphasize with them, understand them, communicate in the way that calms them down. So I'm actually giving you a little sneak peek of what a doctor does in his daily life. And this relates a lot to me as well as a researcher because I do interact with doctors. So this is something from my perspective in my life. So yes, remember 3 things: gratitude journaling, try breathing exercises through yoga, and having constant contact with friends, have them identify things that should be changed or should be kept in your life. Other than that, the 5-step program for being a more empathetic person. So thank you guys. Once again, we have reached close to the 3 hour mark. I'm very happy that this didn't go on too long. So yeah, before ending this session, does anyone have anything else to say? Awesome. So it's coming quite late, and now in Asia it's 9 to 10 o'clock, and I believe that's close to 3 o'clock in the UK, right?
2 o'clock.
2. Okay, not
Yeah,
too late. So
yeah.
once again, I hope Shanae, you have a great rest of the afternoon, and to all the Asian peeps, have a wonderful night. I will upload this recording onto YouTube. I will make it a private link because I'm still not confident to put it public yet. But I'll alongside with the first video, I'll upload it so everyone who didn't attend today will have access. I'll share it on the group, and then I'll also share it to Shanae if you want to look back at it. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
This
Thank you
has
so much.
You're always welcome. I'm glad that everyone enjoyed this session, and I wish everyone a good afternoon and good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you.
See you
Thank
guys.
you, Justin.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.